in math, please.
Alright, so my name's Sarina. I'm Alyson.
I'm Brandon.
And we're doing the government of Spain. So, here are the topics that we're going to be talking about. So the first one is the type of government, and then we're going to go into the elections, and then we're going to go into citizen rights, and then we're going to go into recent leaders, and then at the end we'll go over the notes.
Alright, so the first is government type and alright. So the type of government that Spain used was a monarchy, and usually a monarchy has a head of power, but for Spain it was the prime minister was the head of like the government, like all the lawmaking and all of that, and the king and queen were just part of like the military. That's what they were the head of. And yeah, so the prime minister ran the government. And then for this one, like I don't know how it got messed up, but a monarchy usually consists of a king and queen, and the king was a social representative for the country, and the prime minister was the head of government, while the king was the head of state. Yeah, and the prime minister like made laws, passed regulations, and stuff like that.
Okay. I'm going to be speaking about elections, and so Spain has a parliamentary system, and so maybe you've heard of it before, but the UK also has this type of system. But if you don't know, because when I first saw it, I didn't know. According to Britannia, it says it's a democratic form of government in which the party or a coalition of parties with the greatest representation in the parliament, which is the legislator, forms a government, and then its leader becomes prime minister, and then or the chancellor, and still that can be a little confusing. So here is the parliament, and then above is the name that it has, and it's made up of two chambers, so the upper and the lower, and it's full of senators. And so like the definition says, it's a democratic form of government, and then whatever party has the most representation, and that's determined by how many seats they have inside the parliament, they'll be able to form the government. And then like it said, the person who is the leader of that party becomes the prime minister. And so general elections happen every 4 years because people who are inside the parliament, their terms are every 4 years. So citizens are going to be voting for whoever sits inside the parliament. And so something that's interesting is that they're voting for a specific party and not specific candidate. So here are the 5 most dominant political parties, and obviously those are the names. And then next, it just says where they fall under. And so if you're voting, you're going to be voting for a specific party. So if you're really left wing, you'll probably vote for the first two, and wherever you fall, you can vote for where you want to be. And so that's how the elections work.
I'm going to be talking about citizens' rights. So these are important freedoms and rights of citizens in Spain. But I wasn't entirely sure how to do this, so I just picked some United States rights that we all know and talked about how they contrast with Spain. Is it up to change it? I forgot.
It's
Down? Okay. So the first two are academic freedom and freedom of speech. These are two important rights that are granted to us as Americans. Academic freedom means that when we go to school, nobody is going to push us in favor of a specific political candidate or political party. We're free to make that decision based on facts that we're given. And actually, recently Spain had a court case with a university where that university had been promoting a certain political party, and they were told by the courts that they were not allowed to do that because it violated academic freedom. So we share that with Spain. Another one is freedom of speech, which you know, everybody gets the right to voice their opinions. Sorry. So like people in Spain as well as here get the right to like talk about their political views or like their views on gay marriage or whatever, and not be worried that the government's going to prosecute them for what they're talking about. And then also freedom of social protection. So freedom of social protection means that our social freedoms are granted. One of those examples is that America has legalized gay marriage. That's a social freedom, to be able to get married to whoever you want. Yeah, also, something that was really interesting is that Spain legalized gay marriage a whole decade before us. In 2005, we only legalized it in 2015, nationwide. And then also due process, we share that with Spain, where if you are arrested and charged with a crime, you know, you get a lawyer, you have the right to be represented, and go through the court system with a free and fair trial. Wait. I'm also going to talk about current leaders. So this is the monarch, King Felipe VI. He's essentially, like Brendan said, in charge of the army, while also serving as a figurehead, like the Queen of England or whatever. He's married to Queen Letizia, who happens to be a former journalist, and they have 2 daughters, which I think is pretty cool. Also, yeah, he became king in 2014. This is the Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez. He's also called the President of the government, which, so like from American standards, he'd probably be like the closest thing that Spain has to a president. He was elected in 2018 and is somewhat right-leaning in his goals. He wanted to increase religious teachings in schools, public and private, and even to reform the Constitution of Spain to include that. Let's go over the guided notes, but I left them, so. Can I borrow yours?
I have one.
Oh, thank you. So, this is like a fill in the blank. I'll just do this. So it says Spain uses a type of government called a blank. Does anyone know? Yeah, cool. A monarchy usually has a blank and blank as rulers. Yeah. Okay.
And then it says Spain uses a blank. Does anyone know what kind of? And then it goes, this system is a democratic system in which the party that has the most support forms the government, and its leader is, anybody know?
Just 2 words. Yeah? Yeah, Prime Minister.
Alright, next one says, general elections in Spain happen every blank years. 4, yep. And then citizens vote for a blank instead of a specific person.
That's a party.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then also the general elections aren't actually on a blank schedule. Anyone? No?
They're not on a consistent schedule, so there's no specific date that they happen. This one's for rights. In the US, we have similar rights to those in Spain, some including blank freedom. Anybody know? Mm-hmm. Freedom of blank.
Speech.
Yeah. Freedom of blank blank.
Social protection.
Yeah. Due blank.
Due process.
Mm-hmm. I think. There's the back. I'll just do the back. The prime minister is blank blank. What's his name?
Pedro Sanchez.
Yes. He's the leader of the blank.
Parliament.
Yeah, government, parliament, yeah. And was elected in 2018. He aimed to, it was on the slide, so if you didn't catch it, I don't blame you. He aimed to secularize schools, and to blank Spain's constitution.
Reform.
Yeah. Woo. And here are our courses.